Mrs. Joyce Oluwole ni Otolorin is a survivor of sepsis. In this video, she shares her amazing testimony of God's grace, God's kindness, and God's love. She quotes the Bible, John 11, verse 4, which says, "This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby." 3 weeks after falling into a coma, the doctor discovered that she had sepsis of unknown cause. She's indeed a sepsis survivor, and she shares her story in this video. Sepsis is a potentially life-threatening condition that arises when the body's response to infection causes injury to its own tissues and organs. This can reduce the blood supply to vital organs such as the brain, heart, and kidneys. Without quick treatment, sepsis can lead to multiple organ failure and death. But for Mrs. Joyce Oluwole ni Otolorin, she is a proof of God's faithfulness because God came through for her, and that was why she brought in family members and friends to celebrate her survival. And she did this celebration in an event she held recently at Sheraton Hotels in Lagos, where she also launched her book where she chronicled her survival from sepsis. And she has been moving all over the world, teaching people, talking about God's love, God's mercies, and God's compassion. Like I said in this video, she shares her story with us. Please ensure that you watch till the end of the video. I'll see you at the other side of the video.
I remember John chapter 11 verse 4, which says, "This sickness is not unto death, but unto the glory of the Lord." I'll tell you what happened. On the 1st of April 2015, and I'm glad that nobody thought it, or at least my husband didn't think it was April Fool's Day, and I was trying to pull a stunt. I woke up on the 1st of April 2015 feeling out of sorts. I wasn't ill, but I felt that something was about to happen. So I told my husband, and we agreed that I should go to our surgery. I chose to drive the car, so he sat beside me. When we got to the surgery, I told them that I needed to see the doctor. And I remember the reception said to me, "How long have you been registered here? How long have you been coming here?" And I said, 25 years. I said, "Where?" And I said, "How much notice do I need to give?" And she said, 3 days. And I said, I spoke in the American parlance, "I ain't got 3 days." So she looked at me, "What's the matter?" I said, "I know something is wrong, I don't know what it is." So she said, "You had better go to accident and emergency." So we got into the car. I still insisted on driving. We got to St. George's Hospital, and I asked my husband to please park the car, and I dashed into the A&E. And when I got there, there was a queue. I was number 4 in the queue. And suddenly, I began to sway from left to right, and I keeled over and fell on the floor. So I remember 2 nurses came with a wheelchair, and they helped me to the wheelchair. As soon as I sat down, I felt better, and they started wheeling me away from the queue. And I said, "Oh, please let me go back to the queue. I'm okay now." Because I was looking at the people in front of me, and God knows how long they've been waiting. And she said, "No, you have to go straight into the hospital now." So they took me to a cubicle and took my blood for a test. The results came out very quickly, and the phlebotomist said my CRP, which is my inflammatory factors, was 100%, which meant there was an infection somewhere in the blood, but that they didn't know what it was. And the next thing, they brought a hospital bed and they wheeled me upstairs into a ward. And I got in there, and suddenly I felt quite relieved, because I felt that at least before the end of the day, they'll tell me what's wrong, and I'll go back to my home, not realizing that I was going to be there for another 9 months. So while I was there, I thought I'd phoned a very good friend of mine. She was also my senior. She's also my senior from St. Anne's School. We buried her last week, unfortunately. And I said to her, I want a Nigerian delicacy. And she said, what's that? I said I wanted eba and afon with orishi, eseron, and all sorts of things in it. And this friend of mine, even in her own ill health, she went to Brixton, to market, and she bought all this stuff. She prepared the food. She couldn't bring it herself, but she sent it through someone. And I sat there and I ate it, and I enjoyed it very much. And I remember telling my husband I enjoyed it very much. However, within 10 minutes of eating this meal, I went into a coma. I had multiple organ failure. I had septic shock. My toes had begun to rot like vegetables. And it gradually, well, at least it started with that, and my husband was worried. We quickly went to, before I went to coma actually, he told the doctors that, oh, my toes were rotting. And they said, don't worry, we'll just amputate the toes. And they went back. Meanwhile, they were still trying to find out what had brought me into that hospital. They didn't know that I had sepsis. And anyway, the sores began to erupt right into my torso. I don't remember any of this. My husband told me what happened. Of course, I'd gone into a coma. My renal system had failed, my lungs, everything had failed. I was taken into intensive care. I was in intensive care for 4 months. I don't remember anything that happened in intensive care, except my coma. And I have a whole chapter about my coma, which I remember very vividly, and it's in my book. So that was what happened. I was in a coma for 7 weeks. I'll now tell you about my struggle with the pain. I don't know what they did when I was in intensive care, which helped me to forget everything, because I don't remember feeling any pain or anything. I don't remember anything except my coma. But when they felt I was well enough to be moved out of intensive care, I was moved into a private ward. Then the pain started. It was excruciating. By that time, they hadn't done the fingers, it was just the legs. And I remember that I was always asking the nurse for something. They were giving me morphine several times a day, but there was a limit to how much I could have. There must be a purpose in this pain. And God had preserved my life because of a day like this. He wants me to be able to give a testimony and to be an encourager to other people. I must say, as I got better, I went into rehab at Queen Mary's Hospital. I spent another 2.5 months there. And I met other amputees, worse than me, amputated right up to the groin, amputated right the arms, and one person, her mouth was affected. It was permanently wide open. So I asked the nurses, I was getting stronger. I went to that gym, I think maybe for another 6 months after I left that hospital, and I would go and talk to people to let them know what they can do. They can ask for prosthesis for their arms and for their legs. And the reason I did that was because I was discharged to remain in a wheelchair permanently. And they refused to give me prosthesis. So what I thought I'd do, I went to a private gym. I had somebody to help me with the exercises to strengthen my limbs, which were really very weak. Did that for a month. And then I went back to Queen Mary's Hospital, and I told the doctor, I said, I want to have this. God did not make us to sit down throughout our lives. I've got to be moving around. And the way I could do this is if I had this prosthesis. So she said, okay, get on the plinth in her room. So I got on the plinth. She called the physio and the occupational therapist in. They put me through such a rigorous exercise. I was in pain, but I didn't show it. Because if I did show it, I'd never get those legs. After that, they all said, okay, I should come to the gym, and then we'll see what they're going to do.
People affected by sepsis need to be supported. There is need for the education and training of healthcare professionals so that they can easily identify sepsis when presented. Instigating political change that will encourage government support in healthcare. And last but not the least, raising public awareness, which is the purpose for this video, is also critical. The real solution to sepsis is communication. There is a need for vastly improved communication regarding sepsis. You could actually ask the question, could it be sepsis? At an earlier stage, treatment can be delivered and lives can be saved. That is the story of Mrs. Joyce Oluwole ni Otolorin, a survivor of sepsis, in her book titled My Miraculous Survival After Sepsis. Such an amazing testimony. Indeed, God is faithful. The book of Mrs. Joyce Oluwole ni Otolorin, titled My Miraculous Survival After Sepsis, is available at 28 Allen Avenue, Ikeja, Lagos, or you can get it online on www.amazon.co.uk/DP/1916246 Thank you so much for joining, and remember, God is faithful, God is kind, God is gracious. My name is Oma, your very sweetheart on radio, TV, and social media. And thank God for the life of Mrs. Joyce Oluwole ni Otolorin. To God be the glory. Amen.